Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on YYC Business, brought to you by MegaPixx Media. Joining me is Daniel Germain, who is chair of the National School Food Program Advisory Committee, and he's also a founder and past president of the Breakfast Club of Canada. Thanks for joining us today, Daniel.
Hi, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about a campaign that you folks have going on, and it involves children and going to school hungry. And some disturbing numbers I see in a press release that you folks put out, that 2 million children are at risk of going to school hungry. That's a pretty disturbing number, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I've been doing this for almost 30 years by now. As you mentioned, I'm the founder of Breakfast Clubs of Canada. We feed close to 300,000 kids every day in this country. And one of the things that was always shocking for me is Canada is the only country of the G7 who do not have a national school food program. On top of that, Canada is the most generous donor to the World Food Program school feeding program. So go figure, So for the past 30 years, we've tried to make the federal government, provincial and federal government understand that everybody has a role to play in this.
Okay, so tell me, why isn't there a national school food program?
I think everybody uses it as an excuse. Education is a provincial responsibility. So for a long time, the federal said, well, it's not our responsibility. And then the province said, well, we're doing our best and so forth. And in the meantime, the private sector took over and invest a lot of money. They did it with us anyway. And I know they did it with some of the major school feeding program in Canada. So we came to a place where when the pandemic hit, I think that we were lobbying the federal government by then very heavily for 2 years prior to COVID-19. But COVID-19 showed us that we need to do better. What people sometimes don't realize is when you are in a situation of poverty, you have no maneuver. So if price of food goes up, you're in crisis. The price of gas goes up, you're in crisis. So imagine in the middle of a crisis like COVID-19, how many families in this country went sideways and they just didn't know what to do. And so I think the federal government react well. I think the Minister Bibeau, through Minister of Agriculture, did a good job, a very good job. And I'm not paid by any political party, but you got to give it when they do, and they did a good job. But now I think they realize that we need to do more on a regular basis.
So when you talk about a national program, and you're talking about the G7 countries, is there any country in particular that you think is doing it well? And if so, what are they doing?
Well, a lot of countries are doing it very well. What they did is, they figure out what was going on in their own country, what the resources were. We don't think that any political government needs to take all the burden of a national school food program, but they need to be the leader of putting it together. And that's what we see in the other country, where the government, give the leadership. The private sector don't want to go away from it. And I know the province wants to do their part. So now I think it's up to the federal government to give a mandate to a group to put that together and give the best strategy in order to reach as many kids as we can, up to 2 million, like you mentioned. The quicker, the better.
Mm-hmm. What are the consequences, I guess, of children going to school hungry?
Well, I don't know about you, but I know you're in Calgary. But when I was young, my parents were telling me that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. And I think a lot of our children in those 2 million are being caught in a situation of the circle of poverty, where it's been passed from one generation to another. The consequence is dropout. The consequence is a dropout costs in average at least $500,000 to any provincial government in this country, just because we didn't bring them to destination. But more importantly, the kid himself, every kid has a dream. Every kid has a dream. The only difference is they have to give up their dream quicker than most of the other kids, because they have to help their parents. They don't have access to that level of education, or they can't do this. So we just want to make sure that every kid is well fed, ready to learn, and give them a equal chance of success and access to their dream.
Okay, thanks very much, Daniel, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
That was Daniel Germain, who is chair of the National School Food Program Advisory Committee, and also the founder and past president of the Breakfast Club of Canada. This has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on YYC Business, brought to you by MegaPixx Media.